I'm going to share with you the simplest way to get lean and to stay lean forever. With these 5 simple steps, I can guarantee that if you do that, you will get lean. I'm so confident because 3 months ago, my own mom that I've known my entire life, and being a medical doctor myself and a professional natural bodybuilder, once I shared these 5 steps with her, she has dropped over 11 kilograms in 3 months in a conversation that I'm gonna have with you because I want you to live longer, to move faster, and to feel younger. It will change your life forever. And not only have I done this myself, in my pursuit of being a medical doctor and becoming a professional natural bodybuilder, I've gone through my own transformations. Sometimes because it was a psychological thing I was going through, and sometimes because I wanted to finally become this professional natural bodybuilder, which I did. And in that, I went through multiple bulking phases where my goal was to gain muscle, but I gained a lot of fat in the process, and cutting with the objective to finally become a professional natural bodybuilder. I did it as long as 7 months and as short as 90 days. Not only myself, look at my client Harry. He's 4 days out from stepping on stage. And you may be asking, what is it that allowed Harry to drop 95 pounds and then to look incredible? And it's the 5 things I'm going to share with you in this video. The same happened with Sandra and all the clients, the thousands of clients I've coached over the decade. This video is going to be what is necessary for you to pivot 1 degree in your flight, in your pursuit, to finally getting lean and staying there forever, and then being in the final destination that you finally wanted to be for the rest of your life. Let's not waste any time. Let's kick off. The simple step number 1 is going to be your why, or your mindset. And this is the most important step. And if you're clicking off, it's very likely the reason why you still haven't achieved it. But let me explain when I finally was able to get through to my own mom. So for context, I've been making YouTube videos for 10 years. So all the information I have, my mother had. But until I had this conversation about her why and her mindset, was she finally able to make a change? Let me explain. Success is usually 1 step short beyond the point where one quits fighting. And this is why the why is so important. Why are you doing what you're doing in the first place? And it all has to do with mindset. I sat down with my mom, I did a blood panel for her, and I assessed all her markers. And my mom has metabolic syndrome. Her chances of having a cardiovascular event, a heart attack, a stroke in the future is so high based off of the 5 key markers for metabolic syndrome. And once I had a conversation with her that it would crush me and my sister and my family if the reason she wasn't here anymore was because of something that I knew I could directly prevent. And when she finally understood that losing weight was more than just how she looked, but it was for her own health, to be there for her family, to be there for me longer, and that we had control over that, where one day we may not have control over that. Once she understood that it was more than just her and how she looked in clothes, but for the love of her family, for the love of spending more time with us, she finally understood her why, and she could do everything else, and she's now down over 11 kilograms and she cannot stop. And your why is going to be so important because once you realize what that is, it will prevent you from ever quitting. It will allow you to achieve what an author calls definiteness of purpose. You will finally and definitely have a purpose to go for. And once you understand that, you will relentlessly pursue that even when you feel like you want to quit. And that's what usually happens with most people. Because they don't have a strong reason for doing something, when it gets difficult, they quit. But once you finally unlock this true reason why you want to achieve this belly fat loss, this getting lean, it will allow you to unlock that character. And that's what happens with every single client I've ever worked with. We had a very profound conversation about why they wanted to get to where they wanted to. So simply, it's like, hey, I want to look good on the beach. But whenever you're challenged with, hey, have this drink with us, or hey, let's go out for dinner and eat pizza, you crumble and your foundation falls in. However, once you finally have a very strong why of what you're doing, it becomes easy to make the correct decision. And even the word decision comes from the Latin root word de, which means from, and cadere, to cut. You need to cut off the other option, which is not the one you want, and definitely go for what you desire. So it is important to be able to finally understand what your why is. And you just need to take a paper and write down, why do you want to get lean? And it may be, okay, I want to get a six-pack. But if you think about it a bit deeper, it may be, I want to find a partner. I want to be loved. Or it may be, I want to be accepted by my peers. Or I want people to finally respect me. Or it may be like my mom, where she realized how important it is for her own body to live longer and for her to be with her kids more. Or it may be, in Harry's case, my client, he wanted to do it for his boys. He wanted to be around for his boys, and we had an interview together. And once he finally understood what his why was, he was able to make a decision about who he wanted to become and have a definiteness of purpose and relentlessly going for that. And here he is 4 days out from show. And that's what you need to do. You need to make a decision about why you want to reach that position and then achieve it relentlessly. And if you've watched many videos, you have the science. It's just that you haven't understood why. And once you have that understanding of why you're doing what you're doing, it becomes easy to overcome difficult situations that normally stumble you up and will allow you to definitely reach your final destination. And it is completely a mindset shift. It finally allows you to look at what you want through a lens that allows you to see success. And for those of you who may be like, well, Mike, I don't have one. If you do still have a definite desire to be able to get lean, you can create one. I started competing because after I got lean the first time, I was like, okay, I did it. But I decided to compete to create a new why. And then I created the goal that I wanted to be a natural bodybuilder. And you may decide, I want to be able to spend more time with my partner, and we can do that at the gym. You can create a why if you so desire to finally get lean. Environment is the invisible hand that shapes behavior. It is so much easier to reach your goals by creating an environment that supports them. An example, once upon a time as a student, I would have cookies, cake, chips in my pantry, in my fridge, and I had all reasons not to go to the gym because I picked the furthest gym compared to the one that I could just simply go to downstairs. In the opposite fashion, when I finally made a decision to make this transformation, this is what I did. I threw out all the foods that weren't going to serve a purpose in my transformation. So why would I keep unhealthy cookies or cake? Or why would I pick the furthest gym from where I lived? Why would I have cookies on my table? And you guys can tell I said cookies a lot because I love cookies. You're seeing it on the screen. That is my Achilles heel. But I do this with all of my clients. Number one, we find an area where they can easily get water, where most of the time people are actually thirsty or not hungry. Instead of a bowl of cookies on the table, we turn those into apples. Instead of having calorie-filled sodas in the fridge, switch them all for 0-calorie alternatives. You will also hear that I talk a lot about steps. Hey, you need to walk more. Getting a walking pad in your environment will improve your chances of hitting those 10,000 steps. So analyze your environment, look at all the things that trip you up, and change those for better alternatives, from picking better sauces with less sugar and fat, and picking a gym that's closer to you. And once my clients and all the people I've ever worked with, and including myself, adjusted their environment to succeed, it became so much easier. It became habitual. And it felt like this invisible hand was shaping my physique, because all of a sudden I was making healthier choices, I was moving more, and I was training more, which is simply what it takes to get lean. It's very simple. So look at your environment, and if it's the groceries you're buying and you're like, you know what, I need to change these groceries. If it's the apps on your phone that you're using and you're downloading a lot of trash, then you're always ordering trash because it's convenient. Delete them. Cut off all the things that won't help you and introduce all the things that will. And I highly recommend you make this analysis, and it can make a tremendous change. This has caused an easy 10-pound change in all of my clients. It's such an easy win. I know by now, all of you guys have heard caloric deficit. And in simple terms, you need to move more and eat less. So simple, but people make it too complicated. What is the simplest way I can eat less? And the one thing we can do is to shorten the window time of when we decide to eat. Instead of having a breakfast, a lunch, a dinner, a snack, right? These 4 meals and then snacking all the time and you're eating all the time. To create a caloric deficit, you could simply decide that I'm just not going to have breakfast anymore. And that might be difficult in the first 3 days as your body adapts, but it's the simplest way to create a caloric deficit is by restricting your time. And this is why we call it time restricted feeding. So for example, again, if you're not tracking calories, right? I'm not saying you shouldn't have 4 meals. What I'm saying is if you're not tracking calories and you don't have any gauge of what you're putting into your body, the likelihood if you're eating breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a snack, you're probably making 4 mistakes. However, if you just simply decide to make 1 mistake less and skip breakfast, you will see a change in your physique because you would have reduced the amount of time you're eating and consequently the amount of calories. And as you build on this simple habit, you can then say, you know what? I'm not gonna fast for 12 hours, I'm gonna fast for 14 hours and then do a 14-10 fast. And then the classic 16-8, where you decide, okay, I'm only going to have lunch at 12 o'clock and then I'm going to have a snack at 3 p.m. and then my final dinner is going to be at 8 p.m. and I'm going to wait until 12 o'clock the next day. So many of my clients, I would even say 80 to 90%, practice some form of time restricted feeding because it's just so easy. And why I find time restricted feeding important to also stay lean forever is that when you're in the event that you're traveling, you're going in a business meeting, you are hopping on a flight, or you're on a holiday. Under those difficult circumstances where you're not in your regular routine, it's always a simple rule that you can follow that can still allow you to be within your goals. It's much better to limit the damage than to just say, you know what, since I'm not in my environment, I'm not gonna really control anything. My first piece of advice is start with 12-12 fasting. So start your first meal at 8 a.m. and finish your last meal at 8 p.m. Many people still snack at 9 p.m. and 10 p.m., 11 p.m. before they go to bed. So 12-12 is actually very important. And if you cut off eating at 8 p.m. and you start eating at 8 a.m., very likely you'll find yourself at maintenance calories. After doing that for about 2 weeks and analyzing better habits, you can then change to a 14-10 and decide to delay your breakfast by 2 more hours and then having your first meal at 10 a.m. And you may notice, you know what? I can't eat 4 slices of toast. I'm gonna have lunch at 12. I'm just gonna have 2 because your stomach is gonna be so full. And as you see, okay, some weight is coming off, then shifting that to the 16-8, right? Where you're eating at 12 p.m. until 8 p.m. So the simple fashion is that, for example, when you're starting your diet, you'd probably be eating, for example, 2,500 calories. And we understand we need to reduce those. And you can do that with the 12-12. When we get to 2,200 calories, you may be like, okay, I'm having less food. I'm gonna delay my eating by 2 more hours and do the 14-10. And let's say you get to 2,000 calories, right? After about a month and a half, you'll say, okay, now I'm going to follow a 16-8 fast. And let's say you go from 2,000 calories to 1,700. Now you're trying to go from 15% body fat to 10% body fat. And you'll say, you know what? I'm going to go for an 18-6 fast. And that is an intelligent way of adapting your body and also creating a caloric deficit very simply. And in conclusion, this is going to allow you to be able to lose weight, but weight is not what we want to lose. That's very easy. What we want to lose is fat, and everything else here from this point onwards is going to make sure that we're only losing fat and not losing muscle. Protein intake. In Greek, protein is translated to proteos, which means of the first order. In my opinion, protein is by far the most important macronutrient, especially in the context of bodybuilding. And this is why. You need to provide your body the building blocks to build muscle, and that is always going to come from protein. But why I consider protein of the first order is that the macronutrient of protein contains so many more benefits compared to carbohydrates and fats. Now, they're all very important, but in my opinion, I put protein at first. So why? What protein is going to do for us is that, number one, it will help us with the caloric deficit because protein can make you feel full. it can be able to incite the satiety hormone peptide YY. Besides protein being able to make you full, protein has a second feature, which is the ability to actually burn more calories. And think about it. Think about when you chew a steak compared to when you chew rice. It takes so much longer to chew that protein compared to the rice. And that is one of the simplest ways I can explain that protein has the highest thermic effect of food. Your body burns more calories digesting protein by far compared to carbs and fats. So ingesting more protein will burn more calories and consequently allow you to be able to boost your metabolism. So eating protein has that second benefit. The third benefit of protein is that it will provide you the building blocks necessary to build muscle. Protein is broken down into amino acids, and think of it as this brick, right? And these bricks layer onto your muscle mass, and as you continue training, which we'll talk about later, you're able to build muscle tissue. And think of it as adding a new layer, let's say to your chest. You go and train, the amino acids from protein fixes all the damage you've done and creates a new layer. You do this over a year, over 2 years, over 3 years, and you look incredible. Now that we understand why protein is so important, you might be asking, okay, Mike, how do I eat more protein? The simple route that never fails anybody is that you need to eat 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So if you're 200 pounds, simply eat 200 grams. The next complaint I usually get is like, Mike, that's so much. How do you do that? So I want you to write down this mnemonic. It's called 2, 6, 8, 10. And all these things I'm going to tell you will give you 50 grams of protein each. So 2 in 2, 6, 8, 10 is 2 scoops of protein. 2 scoops of protein will usually give you 50 grams of protein. In 6 in 2, 6, 8, 10 is 6 ounces of cooked chicken breast. That will give you 50 grams of protein. In 8 ounces of cooked steak, that will give you 50 grams of protein. And in 10 ounces of tuna or any white fish, that will give you 50 grams of protein. So if you're 200 pounds, then you just need to eat all those 4 foods in any combination every day, and you will have 200 grams of protein, and voila. So depending on your weight, if you're higher or less, you just need to decide if you need to eat more of the 4 things I mentioned or a little bit less according to the measurement. But it is so easy, and I'll even just give you an example. For breakfast, you can have a protein shake. For lunch, you can decide to have chicken breast and rice. For a snack, you can have rice cakes with the tuna that I just mentioned. And then for dinner, you can have steak and fries. Voila, 200 grams of protein, eating it in the quantities that I just mentioned. Now, let's move over and build muscle. I've been delving into longevity and living longer. There's even a video by another doctor, and he actually was a neurosurgeon and he quit. And he quit because he realized that eating healthy and exercising actually saved his patients more than the surgeries he would do as an MIT graduated medical practitioner. This neurosurgeon quit his job because he realized, well, they don't need me. They just need to exercise more and live healthier. Building muscle is the most powerful longevity drug in the world. But training is imperative for you. It doesn't matter if you're 18 years old or if you're 50, especially if you're older, you need this. Women need muscle because the risk of breaking your bones when you get older is there due to a decrease in estrogen. What happens, like simply if someone takes a shot at you with a gun, God forbid that ever happens to you. I've had so many patients have their lives saved because they just had a little bit more muscle mass and it didn't pierce a crucial artery or vein. At that simple level, it's protection. It is allowing you to protect your skeletal muscle. But not only that, when people get sick, their body usually wastes away their muscle mass. And if you have none to begin with, it makes things so much more difficult for you. But if you have plenty, you have a better chance compared to the person who doesn't. And that is beyond the more vanity, I want to look good, I want to have a six-pack. So my recommendation to anybody is fall in love with the gym. And all you need is to go 3 times in a week. And to quote James Clear, just establish the rule that you won't fail 2 times in a row. So go to the gym once, and then don't go to the gym the next day. And then go to the gym the day after that. But you need a minimum of 3. And if that's all you can do, that is perfectly fine. Just go and train. And I recommend a full body split, right? Just Google full body training routine. You know what? I'll do you one better. Here's a full body training split. If you want to go 4 times, go upper body, lower body, upper body, lower body. If you want to go 5 times, I highly recommend upper body. You train all your upper body muscles on day 1, lower body on day 2, push, right? Your chest, shoulders, and triceps, pull, back and biceps and legs. And then 6 days is push, pull, legs, and repeat. That is the simple way, but it is so imperative that you train. And we don't need to lift the heaviest weights. It's all about the quality, not the quantity. Make sure you're lifting the weights with great form. And what this does is that you make sure that you're training with maximum efficiency, you're translating the weight into the target muscle, and you will see that with the protein you're eating and the training you're doing, your body is going to direct all those amino acids into the muscle that you just damaged, because that's all training does. It damages your muscle fibers, right? That's why you feel pain, and then your protein repairs it. And doing this is like taking a chisel, breaking it down, and then adding a new layer of clay. Finally, the last step and the last bonus I want to give you guys when I talked about being able to get lean and staying lean is moving more. And the one thing we've been doing as young as toddlers is walking. Walking is the only cardio you need. Don't make it any more complicated. Start at 8,000 steps and increase it by 1,000 every 2 weeks. And please, if you're watching this and you're considering you want to work with me, don't apply if you're not even walking. Unless you're like, Mike, I want you to figure it out all for me, and I'm ready to pay for your premium product. Just walk. It will do so much for you outside of just fat loss. It is great for your heart. Just think of your heart as a pump and think of all your arteries and veins as the pipes. If that pump isn't working, those pipes are gonna get clogged, introducing stroke or heart attack. But if you're walking and you're having good consistent blood flow, the likelihood that those pipes clog is much less to 0. So besides just trying to lose weight, it has so many more benefits. And again, going back to the why, once you realize you definitely need this, your brain is gonna stop all the thoughts of like, I can't do this, I'm so busy, no one has the time. You have the time, you just don't wanna find it. But if it does mean something to you, you will find it. And I wanna leave the video there. It's up to you to share your story in the comments, because if my video inspired you, it's up to you to inspire the next person. Tell people if you agree with what I have to say or not. It's your opinion. But if you do, or if you don't, you may inspire them with your own experience. So share that in the comments and share this video with someone who needs to see this, because this conversation saved my mom's life. And I'll talk about that more in another video. But I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.